Now, in a city that doesn't have many instantly recognizable local politicians, Joe Reardon has been one of our metro's most familiar faces. But after being a fixture on the political landscape for the better part of a decade, the mayor of Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas, announced this week he's calling it a day. Less than 8 weeks before he was to face voters in his bid for re-election as mayor, Reardon abruptly decided he will not seek another term. He says he wants to spend more time with his family. But is there more to it than that, Steve Kraske?
Well, I think, Nick, at this point, you sort of have to take him at his word. There was a sense leading up to the holidays that the mayor was going to seek a third term. That was the expectation going forward. But then the holidays hit, and to hear him talk about it in an interview with Dave just the other day, the holidays came and he began to reconsider looking at his family, looking at his young kids. He said that his oldest kid, 4 years from now, will be on the brink of going to college. That's a whole lot of time away from his father, as his dad spending so much time being mayor. So I think all of that played into Joe Reardon's decision.
But the election, as I said, is just in the end of February. Absolutely. He already has an opponent. Nathan Barnes, a unified government commissioner, has already filed for that office.
And people know Nathan's name, and I think it's going to make for a very interesting election, that's for sure. I don't think we should do too much about picking apart why Reardon decided not to run again. I mean, the aspect that is very, very personal that he has talked about a little bit of his father dying at such a young age that he is 1 year from. Those sorts of anniversaries play upon people in large ways. So, you know, I respect him. I think he's done a great job as mayor over there. He kept the momentum going that Carol Marinovich started, and be an interesting election now.
Anything more that we should be looking into this decision, Dave Helling?
No, I did talk with the mayor, and I take him at face value. I also don't think you've heard some suggestions this week, Nick, that he might be thinking about running for Congress or running for governor. I just don't think that, in long conversations with Mayor Reardon over the years, I just don't think he has that kind of fire in the belly, that sort of focus on a big political career. He may yet pursue it, but you don't get the sense that he wakes up in the morning thinking to himself, how can I, you know, achieve the next office on the ladder. Let me throw in quickly, Mark Holland also filed this week to run, so we now have at least Nathan Barnes and Mark Holland. Ann Murguia says she's interested in running for the post. Several other names have been mentioned. David Haley, I think, came up, Chris Steiniger and others. So it should be a wide open field, and there was some suggestion that the mayor, Joe Reardon, waited as long as he did because he didn't want this kind of 12-person field. The suggestion was that he actually went a little earlier than he thought he was going to go, in part because Steve was able to get the story. And so you're going to see a wide open field for mayor, I think, in Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County. It should be an interesting race.
Let's put those names, by the way, on the screen right now of those people that who might be vying to fill his shoes. They do include, as Dave Helling mentioned, you've got there on the screen Nathan Barnes, Mark Holland. We do have there Ann Murguia. Also, State Senator David Haley and Chris Steiniger, all mentioned. These are state senators that were also vying to become. Does anyone have a leg up, by the way, as a bigger, or are there bigger names still weighing this race at this point in time?
You know, the names you hear the most about right now, Nick, are Mark Holland and Ann Murguia, two very well-known commissioners over there. I think, you know, the race is very, very early here. We don't know what the entire field is going to be. But what we do know right now of these candidates, I think Murguia and Holland are going to be at the top of most people's lists in the early soundings of where this race is headed.
Sam Zepp, what do you think Joe Reardon's legacy has been in Wyandotte County?
I think Mary was right that really continued the momentum that started out where the racetrack is. You know, I lived away from here for a number of years, and you come back, and every time you come back, there's a little something extra out there that's been added. And Kansas City, Kansas, I think, has become a boom town, and I think that's part of his legacy. I'd be interested to hear whether or not Joe Reardon is going to get some pressure from the party in Kansas to run for a bigger office because they really have a dearth of stars.
Yeah, I think he's had that pressure before, and he's proved himself immune to it to a large degree. There was real pressure for him to run against Kevin Yoder in the 3rd District. There has always been, Nick, discussion about Joe Reardon as a potential gubernatorial candidate in very, very Republican Kansas. But again, you don't get the sense talking to him that somehow he thinks moving up the ladder is something that he's really that interested in. He may run again, but it wouldn't be because he's ambitious in that way.
In your story too, Steve Kraske, you had it mentioned that he has a job lined up here, but he's unwilling to make an announcement about that.
Well, he hasn't announced it yet, but you certainly got the sense from the interview, again, Dave conducted it, that he has something sort of in the works here down the road. He'll announce it once we move past this flurry of activity with his future plans. But you do get the sense that he has something else lined up, and we're going to have to just be patient and find out what it is.
Can I say very quickly one more thing? The next mayor of Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County faces enormous challenges, because I think Sam is right. The legacy of Joe Reardon is a good one, but it isn't finished. They're going to get an enormous windfall of revenue once the bonds are paid off for the Legends development project, and they're going to have to decide whether to spend that money on tax relief. Taxes remain very high in Wyandotte County, or whether they'll address it to neglected neighborhoods, sidewalks, streets, that kind of thing. There is still anger in some parts of Kansas City, Kansas, that the benefits of western Wyandotte County haven't really filtered down into the central part of that city. So the next mayor will have enormous challenges, enormous issues to face. It's going to be an important election in that community.
I can't emphasize that enough. There is this split in the county, so much success out west. The people who live in the core of Kansas City, Kansas want to enjoy some of the benefits of all that success. So far, Nick, they haven't seen much of that, and they want it, and they want it soon.
And what is Sly James going to do now, Mary Sanchez? Isn't he going to need another stage partner? They have been a little bit of a double act, haven't they, over these years?
Well, with the Google really solidified that relationship when they came together across the state line to promote the Google Fiber. I think, you know, Sly is a smart politician. He's going to go with whoever wins the election over there, unless for some reason it becomes some sort of antagonistic relationship, which I just can't see. I mean, he basically needs to be what I think the mayor of KCMO needs to be a champion of KCK's mayor as well, because like it or not, you know, state line is just one little road, and we are connected, so he'll do that.